listening to the Rugby Coaches Corner podcast with your host, Andy Plimer. Bringing you up-to-date coaching concepts from the world of rugby. Sharing ideas to make the game better.
Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Rugby Coaches Corner podcast. I really appreciate you downloading, tweeting and commenting on iTunes, so thanks very much. I wanted to give a bit of a shout out to a group doing wonderful things for grassroots rugby. It's a charity called Bula Boots. They've been set up in the UK with the help of Ben Ryan, who coached Fiji to Olympic gold in 2016. Bula Boots are sending rugby boots and other items to the Serua Province, which is one of 14 provinces in Fiji, and are hoping to expand into other areas of the country as well. Currently, they can only ship out of the UK, so if your rugby club wants to donate some kit, I couldn't think of a better place for it to go. The Fijian community is incredible and so important to the game. On top of that, the sport of rugby owes them a lot, I feel, so please check out Bula Boots at www.bulaboots.com to arrange for a donation of boots, balls and other kit to this great cause. I'll also put the link to their website in the show notes for this episode. Thanks again for listening, and go Bula Boots. Okay, welcome to episode number 59 of the Rugby Coaches Corner podcast. I'm your host, Andy Plimer, and joining me today is Dan Van Zyl. Dan played for the Springboks between 1997 and 2000, captaining the midweek side on various occasions. He also played both professional rugby and cricket in South Australia and the UK, after which he moved to Ireland 16 years ago to start a career in coaching. Started working at Leinster 11 years ago in coach and player development, where he coached Leinster U18, U19, the women's teams, also involved with Irish youth and Irish universities, and is also a World Rugby Coach Educator. He's recently started up a business called Rugby Academy Ireland, and it's a pleasure to have him on the show, so welcome, Dan.
Oh, thanks very much for having me, man. I hope the sun is shining in Australia as it is in Ireland.
Yeah, well, I'm actually in Canada, so beautiful day here, and glad you're enjoying your 4 days of summer in Ireland.
Yeah, I know you have to make use of it because it doesn't happen often.
Beauty. Okay, well, we touched on it, your involvement with Springboks, and also a very unique one in that you played both professional rugby and cricket. I think that's really cool. What's a bit of a backstory on your playing? How'd you get into the game and then progress from there?
Oh, look, I started like any South African, started at school, and then rugby was still amateur in those days. But through amateur days, then it became professional, as you know, in 96. Played Super 12 then, as it's known now, Super 15. Represented the Bulls, and then Mpumalanga Pumas, and then moved to Cape Town to play for Western Province and the Stormers. Right. And that was basically my South African career. Played against the 97 Lions, became a Springbok, as you mentioned there, the same year, and played for South Africa between then and 2000, captaining the midweek side before moving to Bristol then. Right. That was, again, probably how I ended up in Ireland at the end, but moved to Bristol on a short-term deal in 2001 after retiring home, and then came over to Ireland in 2002. While playing the rugby, I was playing professional cricket as well, and happened played a cricket final on the Wednesday and then a Super 12 game on the Friday night. Something that I don't think will happen very often now.
No, that's great. What were you, a batter or a bowler in cricket?
I was licorice all sorts. Bowled a bit of off spin, but never turned the ball, and that's how I got my wickets. And then I batted about number 7 and was adequate fielder. So a bit of everything. So I played more one-day games than 4-day games because of that speciality. Yeah. But no, really had a good 10-year, 11-year career, and still playing first league cricket over here in Ireland.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. Yeah, it's the two go really well together, and I think there's been great athletes in New Zealand, Australia, and South Africa for cricket and rugby, and you could see easily that they could transfer to both.
Yeah, I think it's something that's going out of the game a little bit, with early specialization, something that I don't necessarily agree on, because I do think the different change room atmospheres and the different skill sets that you have to learn and so on is good for all sports.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. All right, and what about those first coaching experiences? You said you moved to Ireland 16, close to 17 years ago. What did those first coaching experiences look like, and what were some of the key learnings that you took away from them?
It was quite interesting. Played against Western Samoa on the Friday night, and then found myself in Ireland on the Monday, and did a first session on the Tuesday. And the skill set, I must say, was a surprise to me. So they started the main coaching in a place called County Carlow in the sunny southeast of Ireland. At that stage, they were All Ireland Division 1, so the highest amateur league that you can play in. But learnings early on was definitely that it's a lot tougher coaching than playing. And as I was a player coach, it was to do as I say and not do what I do, because obviously you're going to make a lot of mistakes and so on as well.
Yeah.
But I think the most important learning was to be honest, inclusive, and a coach once told me it, and I sort of didn't believe it, but to be a good selector, I think is to become a good coach. If you're a good selector, I think you're halfway there. So when I started coaching, I did a lot of drills, as you do, and thought, you're a good coach by the more drills you knew. But now with experience and so on, I've moved away from that over the years, and I would say my coaching has hugely improved, as you would hope it would. But my philosophy about the game has always stayed the same.
Yeah. Well, that leads us into the next question. That's really an interesting transfer, because it sounds very similar to mine, especially the do as I say, not as I do piece there. That was definitely part of my deal. But yeah, moving from drill space to game space.
When it comes to fitness and so on, you've got to be able to walk the walk as well.
Absolutely.
Because I think if you're a player coach and you just let other guys do the fitness and you stand back, it doesn't create a good atmosphere.
Cool. Yeah. So now, what's your philosophy in coaching look like when it comes to leading a team, and how would that be expressed by you on the practice pitch?
Look, my coaching philosophy, as I say, has always been pretty similar to what it was, but I would say it's to create an environment where, firstly, I think, especially in amateur land, which I still coach over here, it might be different in pro land, although I do think the enjoyment factor is hugely important,
Agree.
But then as well, to have players learn, and where they challenged through a questioning approach, and I would say more about the tactical awareness. So my philosophy will be questioning players, challenging them through their tactical awareness through a game-based approach, more where I used to be when I came to Ireland first, as I said, where it was 80% drills and finish off with a game. It's now, you learn your technical skills through your tactical awareness. So I would be 80% game-based and then 20% drills if you really want to hammer in on something,
Yeah, that's awesome. And what's your favourite part of the game to coach, and what's some of those go-to kind of games and activities that you like to do in that part of the session?
I am a bit of a dreamer, I think rugby is all about attack.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, the old Kevin Keegan, or was it Kevin Keegan that said, they score 3, we score more. So I love coaching attack. Thinking of shapes, there's a lot of systems now, but I would be more inclined thinking of shapes and options within the attack and how we can challenge defenders then making the wrong decisions, So I would play a lot of realignment and reactive games where players need to think how and where they can be effective in the moment, so that it's not prescribed or pre-programmed. They have to make a decision. Do they stand still where they are? Is it to follow the ball? Is it to form a second line of attack? And what will those decisions be based on, and what will influence them? Either the space available, or the pace of the ball, or the defenders itself. So it's high tempo, uneven numbers games, where I will make pitches bigger or smaller at any given time, to practice different skill sets or different things that I want them to be aware of. It might be that the attack has an advantage, or in some cases defence. So it's quite varied, and I focus a lot on transition plays and counter attack, because I think 75% of the game is about that, and yet coaches spend a hell of a lot of time on first phase and structured play and so on, and then when they get the ball, suddenly they don't know how to do it. So there's a few different games that I play around that, but it's basically creating chaos. Sometimes not even knowing myself what I want out of it, but trying to see if players can adapt and come up with solutions.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that sounds great. And it's amazing how coaches will transfer from a really structured, organised, everyone in nice lines to total chaos, and how that I find that process fascinating in terms of coach development, and the ones who actually get to that point, I think they really understand the game deeply.
Yeah, and it's very interesting, working with young players, working with club players, and young players is probably easier to influence, club players and players that's been coached a certain way find it quite difficult now, because they want to be told what to do and how to do it, where I think the how to coach has become a lot more important than the actual what to coach, because most coaches knows the technical aspects around the play.
Yeah, agree. Okay, and what's a bit of, for those who don't know, what's a bit of a description of the rugby landscape in Ireland, especially around the Leinster region, which you're really familiar with now?
I would say Irish and Leinster rugby are very strong at the moment, and there's the four provinces: Ireland, Munster, Connacht and Ulster. But Leinster, as shown now this year again, is probably the leading province within Europe.
Absolutely.
There's a great schoolboy system where you've got your top 6 or so private schools that's really strong. Blackrock College and Michael's College, who produces professional players all the time. But then underneath that, you've got a sort of a B section school league that's very competitive, and there's also a great club underage system, that produce good youth players. So in Ireland, we've got 2 setups. We've got a school system and a club system. The club system is there for the guys that play GAA, hurling and football and other sports, and they don't have rugby programs within their school, so they get rugby once a week and then play on the club. But again, over the last number of years, because of the coaching and so on, that's really improved. A lot of those players have come through: Joey Carberry, Tyke Furlong, Sean O'Brien was probably one. Shane Organ was one of the first, and then Sean O'Brien followed. So there's a lot of those club players now stepping up. So the other provinces will argue that it's because Leinster have the numbers. But as I said, I do think it's because the coaching is at a very good standard, and there's very good buy-in from the senior setup with Stuart Lancaster and Leo Cullen and so on into what the domestic game, as we call it, do. So there's very good interaction and so on. So I think Irish rugby is in really good health. Watching the 20s last night, just losing to France probably was a bit unlucky, but every national team as well, whether it's women's or 18s, 19s, 20s, have probably more than 60% Leinster players in those squads. So I think that's sort of a reflection where Ireland and Leinster is for this at this moment in time.
Yeah, and I think the Leinster Academy's got to be right up there with the best in the world. You know, people often compare Crusaders Academy to it as well. What's I suppose not the secret, but what's some of the key things that make Leinster Academy so successful, and how do they link with those private schools and clubs to really, you know, target those best young players and bring them through?
Yeah, no, that is a challenge. And I mean, Scott Robinson was over here from the Crusaders a couple of years. You know, I know Leinster coaches go over there with the Crusaders, and it's the Leinster Academy is just, you know, the depth chart that the guys have. I think it's second to none. You know, like they'll have the top player playing, say, a Rob Carney playing fullback, and then they'll have a depth chart of the next 8 to 10 fullbacks coming through, you know, and some might still be at school and so on. So it's really knowing their players, and obviously they can only produce or bring through so many. But I think through the Leinster Sub Academy and so on, you know, there's something like 65 or 75 players playing elsewhere, that professional that's come through the Leinster Sub Academy, you know. So it is a good. It's a good place to work for, because, you know, the next player is just there, where the other provinces and other places probably have to search harder for those players. But that brings pressure in itself, you know, to make sure you pick the right guys.
Yeah. And what about managing players' playing time, especially when they're in high school, and juggling academics as well? An academy athlete with Leinster who's also at their high school, say at Blackrock, how would that kind of look like to make sure that the players' health and their academics are, you know, paramount, and that you're managing the training load and the game time?
It's actually the school system, as I said, is very good, you know, and there's a guy in charge that deals with the school coaches and the club coaches to look after that. But we're lucky in Ireland that, you know, most of the provincial coaching and games take place during the summer.
Okay.
So we, or the staff members of Leinster, will get the top school players in the last week in June, and then train them July, August, and then the interprovincial series takes charge in September.
Right.
And then the national teams get selected. But so it doesn't really have a great effect on schools, because they go back to their school environment in September and then play there throughout the whole year. So the Leinster Academy staff would get their hands on the players during half-term breaks or Christmas breaks or summer breaks and so on. So it actually works very well in that sense, that the kid is not taken out of his natural habitat, you know, like he'll still have his normal school day and so on.
All right, and what about your day-to-day roles when you were with Leinster? You were there for 11 years as coach and player development. What did your kind of day-to-day, week-by-week look like?
I started off in 2007 as a regional development officer, which had responsibilities throughout the province, but that developed into a coach development role in 2009. And the role started off being something, but the workload increased massively as the game just became more popular and better, you know, as you can imagine, you know, like in Canada, for instance, girls rugby and women's rugby has been at the forefront for a number of years, you know, but Ireland over the last number of years has really started that process, so that increases workload and so on as well. But I was mostly responsible for coach education at all levels in a specific area, the metropolitan, which will be the Dublin area, and basically looked after 23 clubs and 10 schools on their coach education, whether you're coaching a 6-year-old or whether you're coaching a 13-year-old or whether you're the senior coach of the club. I had to make sure that there's coaching courses for you, to identify coaches that can coach at a higher level.
Yep.
Accredit those coaches then. So guy goes on a coaching course. I had to make sure that this accreditation process gets done, and then you act as a mentor for them after.
Right.
Keep giving that support and so on. And basically, it was to offer schools and clubs a support base to their already existing coaches and coaching structure. So that was one half of the job, and the other half was player development, which was to identify players around about the age of 15, as I say, bring them into our summer programs and identify them, develop them, and then coach them and mentor them, and hopefully then they become Leinster under 20 players, or like Jordan Lamar now, the new kid on the block, and so on. So it was basically spotting talent and a lot of time changing a kid from one position to a next, all in the course of to play for Leinster. So even going out and watching a 16-year-old, you're thinking, where can he fit into the conveyor belt? So and that had a lot of time. And as I said, then the women's game also came along. So it's quite thorough.
Yeah, that's great. That's it sounds like a pretty awesome role, but a pretty busy one, no doubt.
Yeah, no, look, it puts pressure on other ways of life, because you're out every evening, you're out basically in the mornings, you do your admin or set up your meetings, and in the afternoons, you're out coaching, and in the evenings you're assessing coaches and going to clubs and so on, and then weekends is the same. So that has its toll on family life and all of that at a stage. But as I say, there's plenty of highlights that I can look back on. Working with all these Irish players that's coming through now at 16 and 17 years of age, that gives you real satisfaction. That you were there at the start of sort of their development tree. And then the coaching interpro side, we were working with St Mary's University and Chelsea Football Club on coach education, and how the soccer guys do it, and they still light years ahead of rugby, as a professional sport. But those are all great highlights and learnings that to take from it.
All right, great, awesome. Well, before we get on to your new project, Ireland heading down to Australia for the June test window. That's going to be a cracker. What are your thoughts on that? They're taking a fully loaded team, and Australia's had a rough period over the last few months. Last couple international seasons. What are your expectations and thoughts on that tour?
Look, some people might have been surprised. That Ireland took a fully loaded team, but I think that's the nature of Joe Schmidt. As he develops players young players within the system, but he won't just throw young guys out there. He gives them experience with playing with the trust and known guys, and so on. And I think Irish rugby, if a Lions team had to be picked this June, it would have been interesting to see how many Irish lads and even Leinster lads would have probably been on that. So I think Ireland has picked a very strong team. Australia is going, as you said, through their things. But then again, it's very difficult touring there. And the different circumstances and so on. But I would say Ireland 2-1 in the series. That would be my prediction.
That's kind of where I'm leaning to. I think Australia's always going to be strong internationally, except when we seem to play the All Blacks. We always get one decent run against them, but two blowouts it seems. But yeah, I think it's going to be a cracker. Actually, I think it'll be closer than some people think. A lot of people back home are writing the Wallabies off, but I don't think it's going to be like that. And I think 2-1 Ireland would be.
Yeah, but it can easily be 2-1 Australia.
For
you know, I think Cheika is also a very good coach, and all the success that Leinster have is actually going back to his days here. You know, and he's also a lot of similar traits, you know, hard-nosed, you know, very thorough, you know, players like him, you know, so a lot of what Joe Schmidt has, Cheika has as well, and you can see that coming through in the teams, and both coaches always come up with a starter play that beats the defence, you know, and that's one thing. I think they're both good analysers of oppositions as well. So I'm intrigued, as I said, being an attack coach, is how they're going to break the different defences down, and especially our first phase. Our first phase attack, you know, where the weaknesses might be and so on. But it's certainly going to be a series to look forward to.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm pretty excited. All right. Well, you recently moved on from your Leinster role and have gone into private industry, and you're starting up Rugby Academy Ireland. What was the impetus of starting up a venture such as a private academy like that?
Yeah, well, it's nerve-wracking because I've always been in professional sport, and then being involved with an organisation like Leinster, you know, and you know what you're going to get at the end of the month and so on, and now that just doesn't happen. So it's my first introduction to business, but so far really enjoying it. But just back to your question, you know, about the impetus. It was because of the reasons mentioned already, that there are so many players now that is good enough to play pro rugby, but because of perception of one coach at a certain time, or through injury, or through lack of maturity at a certain age, you know, they don't get the chance again. There's many players in the All-Ireland League here that is probably better than pro players, but they didn't get the chance at the right time. You know, one player will play Leinster under 18s because one coach believes in him, and then he goes to Leinster under 19s where a different coach has a different view, and then suddenly the guy doesn't play, and then he's out of the picture. So it's for some of those reasons. You know, teams get picked over year on the year now, and not necessarily on future promise that a player might have, because it's important to get results straight away with under 18 internationals, 19s, all of that. And I think it's also that we want to improve players' training age by having the academy where a player can achieve in 1 year with us what he will probably achieve in 4 years at Clubland, you know. So it's to offer the players that opportunity to be coached, trained the same way, with probably a little bit more personalised support than what guys in academies get, because they're looking at team structures and who's the next guy that's going to fit into the mainstream. Our academy is more for the individual himself, you know, to try and improve him. And then it is a very successful module in the Southern Hemisphere, where it's been going for 50 years, you know. Rod Kafer has got Rugby Tech in Australia, Inside Running in New Zealand, and we've partnered up with them actually now. And then there's loads of them in South Africa, you know, and all the provincial academies actually in South Africa works on this or follows the module that we're thinking of, you know. So we think with a number of players, the standard of the game and the high level of ability that there are players that's being missed in the system, and we want to give them a chance to have a second chance.
Yeah, that's great. I think there's definitely room for that. You'd think with the landscape that's just around Dublin alone, and no doubt, like the business model caters for individual players, but also like touring teams or schools and things like that.
Yes, no, definitely. You know, we obviously our module is a full-time academy, but we do all sorts of different programs. And then, you know, for touring sites coming here, they can book in for 2 days or 3 days in the high performance center, and you know, we'll look after them.
That's great. And when do things kick off? Pretty soon this week, I believe.
Yes. Well, we're opening our doors actually for the full-time academy on the 1st of September. But we have a coach educating course that we run the last week in August for aspiring senior cup players and junior cup players and coaches, you know, where we get some of Ireland's top coaches in that will act as tutors. And we also have an event with Business for Sport during that week, which brings all coach connections together. But we're kicking off this weekend with our first of 4 open days.
Oh, great.
Planned between now and September, where people can book and come see our facility, and while we answer any questions they might have around the facility. So spending time to get everything in place for that. As I say, tomorrow we've got our first people coming across to have a look.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's pretty exciting. And a team arriving, like a touring team, like a high school coach wants to bring his team over for an island experience, or someone who's based there already. What that you mentioned 2 days, 3 days. What would that look like? What kind of process would those teams go through?
They go through whatever program their coaches want. You know, sometimes coaches just want to come and be in a different environment and coach their teams themselves.
Yeah.
Other time they'd like to use other coaches, you know, and specified coaches on certain areas, and that's certainly through the coaching that we do and the coaches that we have available for us and coaching in our academy. We can certainly offer them any aspect of the game. We can get them close to the top guy in Ireland for that matter. And then gym facilities, you know, the Kilashi Hotel where we're based, unreal gym facilities, you know, with hydro pool, spa pool, you know, all the newest equipment around. So all of the S&C's, strength and conditioning, they do on site. The mental side of things, the mental capacities, we've got mental coaches, everything that you bioanalysis, you know, self-reflection. We do, probably not for a touring side, but in our program is career guidance as well for guys not sure what they're going to do. But for a touring team, it's basically to come train twice a day, gym sessions in between, recovery through, you know, we've got Pilates, we've got yoga, we've got, as I said, a hydro pool, a state-of-the-art inside pool, and all of that. So it's, and then it's on Kilashi, there's a forest, you know, where guys can do forest runs. We linked into the Curra, the army guys, which come and do team enhancement with sides. So there's really not much that they won't get.
That's great. It sounds awesome. Yeah, and so people, I'll put all the website information and your email address and everything on the show notes so people can look there. But if people wanted to get in contact you, what's the best way to reach out to you?
Best way is probably through email,
yeah,
or then, you know, which is dan@rugbyacademyireland.ie.
Okay.
And then it's also my phone number is plus 353 86825 3066. So no, we're very excited about it. Teams can expect to be part of a high performance center of excellence using expert advice and knowledge then of the academy personnel. But our main aim is to get that one player that missed out for various reasons and try and put him on a professional path again.
Okay, awesome. It sounds like great work, and I've got no doubt it'll be a success. So all the best with the venture. And tomorrow's the big day, so hopefully you're getting an early night's sleep tonight.
Yeah, no, look, it's all, as I say, it's all exciting times.
Right.
First time being involved in something like this, but it is, it's not just taken out of the hat and okay, let's do this. A lot of thought has gone into it. It is successful in the southern hemisphere. We feel the opportunities now here with northern hemisphere rugby in the state that it is, and other players not getting that opportunity. And then it's also about partnerships, linking up with other academies like ourselves, as I said about Inside Running and so on, where we can send guys there, they can send guys here, and you get to know different cultures while playing rugby, and even that's one of our things for the guy that's not a professional player, because yourself, it only happens to a handful.
All right. Well, we always end the show with the same final 4 questions. When you were a kid growing up in South Africa, who was one of the players that you really looked up to and admired, that got you really interested in the game?
The one that every other province in South Africa hated, and New Zealanders and Australians hated, but it was not. It was Burka, famous South African flyer, which played in New Zealand in the mud, and as only could have been in the 80s, and his shorts was white after the game. So, but he was a hero of mine.
Yeah, he scored some points there, didn't he? He racked
up.
Did,
yeah. And he managed to do it without tackling.
It's great, isn't it? Awesome. Okay, and what about now? Who's some of the players you really look up to or like watching run around on the field today?
Yeah, it probably changes from time to time, but I would say Conor Murray at the moment.
Yeah.
Being a scrum half myself of old, just his consistency, and he just never seemed to play a bad game. Teams play well with him in there, and there's not one aspect that you can say is a weakness. He's just so consistent, and for me, not just the best 9 in the world, but pretty close to the best player there,
Yeah.
So he'll be one because of consistency. But you just have to love James Lowe. The new Leinster winger, and I followed him when he played for Waikato and so on, and he's what rugby is about.
Yeah.
Smile on the face.
Yeah.
You make mistakes, doesn't matter. Carry and score a try, win the game, and enjoy the night.
Yeah. No, I agree. He's great to watch, and Conor Murray, he's got a rugby brain on him too. I think the quarterfinal, I think, for the European Cup this year, where he scored that cheeky try with the knock on at the base of the ruck there, just shows how well he understands the game as well.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that you actually think already now will be a top coach, because exactly of what you mentioned there. He's just got such a good understanding of the game and the people around him.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, and what about coaches? Who are some of the high-profile coaches you like what they're doing?
Never been coached by him, met him once, but Wayne Smith. I think he's every coach's idol. Just his philosophy, his values, all of that, and how he brings that through into his team. Just a real honest guy, that demands a lot from his players, but, there's respect everywhere, and also a thinker of the game. And I think every guy, even in the All Black setup, Graham Henry, when he was head coach, Steve Hansen, they all say that they wouldn't have been as successful without Wayne, and I saw him play for the Cavaliers back in 1986 in South Africa. He was that type of player as well, and he's that sort of innovative coach that just seems to be always ahead of the chasing back, you know. But Keith Medlicott would have been a guy that coached me. Now he's a cricketer, played cricket for England, and through my cricket world, coached me. And for me, he was the best coach in all the sports that I did. Just again, similar to that, you know, innovative, you know, but very honest, you know, which I think sometimes lack in coaches, you know. So he's over in England, I think, and I think he's one that England cricket should have spent more time in.
Yeah. Okay. Great. All right. And what about last question? What about someone in the grassroots around your part of the world that's doing good work and deserves recognition?
Yeah, no, there's a few youngsters coming through. I'm lucky enough to coach with one guy that says he's going to be Ireland's coach when he's 30. He's only 18 now, but he's 18 going on 28.
Great.
A guy called Joe Walsh, who's really again very good knowledge, you know, very good analysis. And all of that, you know, and I'm really excited about seeing him coach or in action now this year. But he's one of the youngs, and then you know, Owen Sheriff, who played for Leinster and Saracens, he's just started out his coaching career. He's one of the coaches on our academy, but you know, people that's been coached by him already speak very highly of him.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great. All right, Dan. Well, it's been great chatting with you. I've really enjoyed it. Can't wait to hear more news about Rugby Academy Ireland. I'm sure everything's going to go really well, and it's going to be an awesome product. And really appreciated your insight into the machine that is Leinster Rugby and how they do so well. And thanks again for giving up some of your time to talk.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me. And yes, no, if we can get any Canadians over, you know, that would be great.
Yeah, you might get me next summer, so we'll see what happens.
Well, we've got place for you.
All right, awesome. Cool. Cheers, Dan.
Cheers. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for listening to the Rugby Coaches Corner podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please leave a review via iTunes and keep listening for the next episode. You can also follow us via Twitter at Rugby Coaches CNR or via the website therugbycoachescorner.com. Until next time, keep sharing ideas to make the game better.